Well, hey there, everybody. It's your boy, Mr. Perry. We're back at it here, Unit 7, Lesson 2. This time we're diving into the world of ArrayList methods, so let's get at it. So before we start talking about ArrayList methods, we're going to take a moment and reflect on this class and think about all the different methods that we've had to learn and practice. So it started with string methods. The first time you had to learn a whole set of methods was when we got into strings. And we had to learn them, we had to practice them. But I also pointed out to you that string methods are listed on your Java Quick Reference. So when you're taking your AP exam and when you are taking the multiple choice portion and when you're writing your FRQs, you have this cheat sheet. So, you can look up, you can remind yourself of, the length method, substring method, index of, the equals and the compare to, and you've got all of the information right here. So all we've really needed to do is practice using these methods so that we're able to look these up if necessary. And the good news is, again, you don't have to memorize them. Now, hopefully you've practiced them to the point where you have maybe kind of memorized them, or maybe you've memorized some of them. But the important thing to remember is that if you need this information while you're taking the exam, you've got it, right? But hopefully by now you're pretty comfortable looking at a block of code like this and just recognizing right off the bat, you've got a string, you've got a for loop, you're looping through the string, and you are printing the substring from I to I plus 1. So this is just a quick and easy way to loop through this string and print each individual character on a separate line. And this is all happening because we are able to use those string methods. Now, recently, you have learned about arrays. And with arrays, you don't have a bunch of different methods that you have to learn. You just basically, and you basically just need to learn the syntax. And the nice thing about arrays is that they are very similar to strings. So if you know your string methods really well, and if you know how to loop through strings and do all that stuff, then looping through arrays is very, very similar. And so, once again, you got an array of doubles. You're looping through that array of doubles, and you are printing each individual grade on a separate line. So hopefully you can easily look at this and just know, okay, this is looping through and it's printing each individual value. So now we're going to get into array list methods. And, at this point in the class, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, great, a bunch of more methods that I need to learn and memorize and blah, blah, blah. And in fact, it looks like we've got 6 of them that we need to know for this lesson. But the good news is they are also on your Java Quick Reference. So the ArrayList class has 6 methods that we need to become familiar with and understand how they operate and what they do. We want to make sure that we can read this information over here and make sense of it. So that's what this lesson is all about, just a general introduction to ArrayList methods. You'll be practicing them like crazy. But just remember, there is good news here. They are on the Java Quick Reference. You don't need to memorize them. All right, so let's go ahead and remind ourselves of a couple of ArrayList methods that you've already learned from the previous video. I've already gone over the add method. So the add method automatically places this value at the end of the array list, no matter where you're at. So if I create an array list of strings, and let's say I'm having a party and I want to create a little bit of a guest list, I would call it guests and set it equal to the new array list of strings and call the constructor over here. So I now have that empty list of 10 spaces. And now here we are, guests.add. Of course, Beyonce is going to be first on that list. So here she is at index 0 in the first position. Guests.add, Kendrick Lamar would come next. And so here we have him at index 1. And then guest.add, Paul McCartney, that's going to put him right over here at index 2. And there you go. So guests.add is a super easy one. No matter how short or long the array list is, anytime you add a method, anytime you call the add method, it just puts that value at the end of the list no matter what. Now we also have this other version of it. The add method is an overloaded method because it has different method signatures with different parameters. So if you call it with 2 parameters, what you're doing is you're giving it an index, and then you're also telling it the value that you want to put in there. So what the add index comma value method does is it places the value at the specified index of the array list. And it's important to note that everything else shifts down and the size of the array list goes up by 1. So let's say I wanted to invite Pedro Pascal as well. And let's say I wanted him to actually be in this position right here at index 1. I would say guests.add 1, comma, Pedro Pascal. And what this line is going to do is it's going to find index 1, and it's going to bump everybody else down, and it's going to put Pedro Pascal right there. So the size of my guest list just grew by 1. Everybody else shifted down. There you go. Pretty straightforward. Now we also have the size method, and this is a return method. It returns the integer representing how many elements are in the array list. So if I've already added everybody in there, and I put in a print statement guests.size, and I call the size method, what this is going to do is it's going to return the value of how many elements are in here. So obviously that's 4. And so this would basically just be printing the number 4. So boom, 4 would show up on my console. Again, pretty straightforward. Now let's get into some other methods. We're going to explore the get and the set method. So the ArrayList class does have a get and a set method, not to be confused with the getters and the setter methods that we use for instance variables, but these are going to behave in a very similar way. So let's pause the video right here. This is a good place to pause. I want you to read through the code that you see right here. I've created an array list of integers, but I've got a for loop, and I'm using nums.add, and the for loop is a little bit strange. So pause the video, take a minute, think through what is going to be in this array list. And then we'll go ahead and look at what happens when we call the get method. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure that out now. I'll assume you paused the video. Let's go ahead and check it out. So what's happening here is I've got a for loop, and it says for int I equals 2. So I'm starting at 2. As long as I is less than or equal to 12, keep going. And then we're going up by 2 each time. And what's happening is I'm calling the nums.add method, and I'm adding my current value of I. So when I is 2, 2 gets added. I goes up to 4, I gets added. I goes up to 6, I gets added. I goes up to 8, 10, and 12. It gets added each time. And then once I goes up to 14, it is no longer less than or equal to 12, so the for loop would stop. Now we're going to exit that for loop, and we're going to call nums.get index 3, and we've got it in a print statement. So let's go ahead and look at what does the get method do. The get method returns the value at the given index. So it's going to go to index 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to see I've got the value of 8 right here. So that gets returned right here, and it's in a print statement. So that means when it prints, it's printing the number 8. And there you go. Pretty straightforward, this one. One thing to note, though, is since get is a return method, you're typically going to use it either in a print statement, or you might use it to initialize a variable. So let's say you had that same for loop, and it was instantiating the, let's say it's putting all of those values in the array list. And then check this out. I've got int first num equals nums.get 0. So this is going to return whatever value is at index 0, which of course is 2, and that would be stored in this variable. And then int last num equals nums.get. But now, instead of putting a number in here, I've got nums.size -1. So this is going to get the last element of that array list, which would be the number 12, store that as last num. And now what we're doing is we are printing first num plus last num. So we're going to add 2 plus 12, and we're going to go ahead and print. Oh, sorry. I've got a little animation in here for you. So again, first num is going to be set to 2. That's my variable holding the value of 2. Last num is another variable holding the value of 12. And again, now we are printing both of them added together. So we're going to see the number 14 up here on the console. Okay. And then what do we have going on here? We could also put in an additional print statement, nums.get1 plus nums.get2. So let's look at what this is going to do. Nums.get1 is going to go to index 1, which is the number 4. And then it's going to add to it nums.get2, which is going to be the number 6. And so, again, this would basically, you can think of this as 4 plus 6, which obviously adds up to 10. And so we would print the number 10 next. So that that the get method can be used in a variety of different ways, but typically it's used to either in a print statement of some kind, like you see down here, or it's used to obtain a value and store it in a variable. Now we've got our set method. So the set method replaces the value at the given index with a new value, and then it returns the original value at the index. So when we call the set method, you have to give it two parameters. The first parameter is the index where you want to set, and then the second parameter is the value that you want to replace. So if I did nums.set 3, 22, what this is going to do is it's going to go into my array list and it's going to find index 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. That's right here where 8 is. And it's going to replace it with 22. So there you go. Notice that the size of the array did not change when you called the set method. All it does is it just goes to the index and replaces it. So that replaces the value at the given index with the new value, and again, does not affect or impact the size of the array. But it also returns the original value at the given index. So you could do something like this. You could create an integer variable, call it original num, and set it equal to nums.set 3, 22. So what this is going to do is it's going to we're creating a variable called original num, and we're going to store the value that gets returned by this method. When this method is called, it returns the original value at that index. So the original value is 8. So that's going to store the value of 8 in our variable original num. It's then going to change index 3 to be our new value of 22. And when we get down here and we print original num, we would print the value of 8. We would see the value of 8 because, again, that's what was originally returned. So the set method's got a little bit more going on. It does more than just replace, a value at a given index. You have the option of storing the original value in a variable or using it somehow. So that's an important detail to note. And finally, we have the remove method. And when we call the remove method, we have to give it an index. And what it's going to do is it's going to remove the value at the given index. It's also going to shift all successive elements backward in the array. And then it's going to subtract 1 from the size of the array list. So if I've created my array list and I've populated it with all of these values, and then I called nums.remove index 2, what this is going to do is it's going to find index 2, which is right here. It's our value of 6. It's going to remove that value. So boom, there it goes. Then it's going to shift all successive elements backwards. So now this all gets bumped back. And then finally, it's going to subtract 1 from the size. So the size of nums went from 6 down to 5. And then the next thing that we have here is a print method, and we're printing nums.get index 2. So it's now going to, it's no longer 6, obviously, it's now 8. So when we print nums.get2, it's going to print the value of 8. All right, guys. Well, there you go. We've made our way through our ArrayList methods. It's time to get some practice. So you can continue working through your CSAwesome activities, or you can check the ArrayList activities document for alternate ArrayList practice. And as always, I'm sharing these slides with you. If you want some additional information about ArrayList methods and more examples of how they work, there are 3 AP Daily videos linked here on the slideshow. All right. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you in class. Adios.